record this while I'm sick, so let's see how the quality turns out of my voice. This is looking at the religious policy of Xerxes. We've got our terms here. Now, don't forget, and I probably should have put it necessarily on here. I kind of have it at the bottom, but I'll explain in a second. What we already know. So we already know we should try and burn that name of Ahura Mazda into our brain. That's the major deity, supreme creator god of Zoroastrianism that still continues to this day. He appears in royal inscriptions in the reign of Darius first. So, and then they draw the link of Ahura Mazda as a supporter of the Achaemenid family and the dynasty. And as I said, it's divine sanction. In other words, it's almost like divine permission for them to hold power. The idea with Ahura Mazda is the concept of Arta, which is this idea of truth. Xerxes also kind of uses this for his own political gain as loyalty to him. And he's so committed to this that he names his son, the successor, Artaxerxes, which is, from Arta's kingdom. Okay, so also remember, one of our major points, same as the administration of the empire, one of your main features, likely, of this argument would be, well, what we believe is a continuation of his father and grandfather's rule. So we can even... So that's kind of an important point. You'd go on to, we are going to get to some changes, but there is a continuation here of a religious policy, which is supposed to be showing some form of religious tolerance. It's not about enforcement and replacement of the subjugated states. As long as they're doing the right thing, they should rightfully be able to believe whatever the hell they want. So in terms of Xerxes' behaviour, we've got some conflicting ideas. Sometimes we can see him as quite pious. Pious meaning, I should have put that in the terms, but pious meaning quite religious, or heretic. Heretic being anti-religion or against religious ideas. So yeah, we've got some difference in ideas here. Herodotus Herodotus is different in how he portrays Xerxes. But we'll have a couple more as well. So, for example, some of the idea, the second time when Xerxes is trying to cross the Hellespont after failing the first time, he pays homage and he gives a offering to the sea to allow him safe crossing. The idea, there's also behaviors talking about him eating one meal a day and things like that, which is in line with that religious discipline associated with his beliefs. Now, there's plenty of things against him. Okay, so we've obviously got the idea of Xerxes destroying temples, including those in Athens in the invasion, but also when we hear of ones in Egypt or Babylon and stuff like that as well. So the idea of him destroying temples or religious statues and stuff like that would be quite heretical. Interesting to note, though, remember it was supposedly the Athenians who burned a Persian temple first, which was kind of what spurred on Xerxes' father Darius in the first place. There's a story of Xerxes sacrificing 9 boys and girls to the river Strymon in order for a safe crossing. Don't forget the idea of crossing the Hellespont in and of itself, according to Herodotus, was an act against the gods. And when Xerxes' ships are taken by a number of storms, and when the bridge fails the first time, this, according to Herodotus, is the idea of the gods, the god taking action because of this act that should not have been done. And there's also a story of a father who had lost a couple of sons and had one surviving son left, and asked that their son could be returned home. And that should say an heir to the throne, an heir to his line. And then Xerxes cuts the son in half as punishment for asking this. Again, there's nothing here that's necessarily completely fact, but we're working off stories of Herodotus here. So the Deva inscription, this is found at Persepolis, and this is quite an important piece and highly contested bit of information regarding the religious policy of Xerxes, and how closely did he follow that of his dad and granddad, or did he kind of go in his own direction? So we've got two kind of interpretations. One that he is a religious fanatic and intolerant of other gods, and one that he's just kind of a religious kind of reformer. He's changing things, but he's not necessarily intolerant of other religions. Now, if he is a bit of a reformer, he's definitely it benefits Xerxes to strengthen the cult of Ahura Mazda, because that ultimately means following this god means loyalty to him. So he's definitely not against it, and he would definitely be trying to promote this god. But it doesn't automatically make him intolerant of other religions. There is also the interpretation when we go over the Deva inscription in class, because it is talking about these people were worshipping Devas, which is another word for demons. They're worshipping false gods, and I took action against them. So it's not a perfect bit of source. It has limitations. There's no specific place or mentioned on it. So historians guess, is it Athens? Is it Egypt? Is it Babylon? Is it Delphi? There's even, when we're studying the language being used, it doesn't seem like language that would have been used from early in his reign. So there's even issues around the date of the Deva inscription. So it is imperfect, and it does have limitations. So it could also be, this is more of a political kind of statement, trying to big note himself rather than an actual event. So think about presidents or prime ministers that talk about they're going to do this and they're going to do that, and if someone does this, well, they're definitely going to do that, and then nothing really comes of it. That's what this could potentially be as well. So the interesting thing is, when you cross-compare the Deva inscription, which from Xerxes' reign, with the Cyrus cylinder, there is quite a difference. So the Cyrus cylinder is not from Xerxes' reign. It's an account of Cyrus's conquest and the restoration of temples. So apparently, this is in Babylon. So there had been a previous Babylonian king who had wasted some temples, and Cyrus had kind of made an effort, even though they were not of the same religion as he, to restore these temples for Babylon. This is historically one of the first pieces of religious tolerance we ever find in history. So that is actually pretty awesome in its own right. It's unfortunate that it is very likely propaganda, but still quite interesting. And when you're talking, if in the first paragraph here, and you're talking about the continuation of the father and grandfather, you could actually use the Cyrus cylinder as a piece of evidence for that if you wanted to. Okay?